All right, this is the second video for the Mallory, and we're going to deal with roofs for the Mallory. Now, one thing that I discovered um, through mistakes was that there is a huge difference when you tag and select roofs for creation, whether you select walls or you select lines, etc. The way that the overhangs and or offsets work are totally different. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go to level 1, and I'm going to start with the lower roof for the back area in here. Um, you can change slopes whenever you want, but let me start with the first one that I'm going to do. I'm going to go to the architecture tab on the left. I'm going to go to roof. I'm going to do roof by footprint. Now it says you have created a roof in the lowest level. Would you like to move it to level 2? Now I'm going to go ahead and move it to level 1. Just put yes. So as you can see here, the base level is level 1, but I have a base offset of 9 feet. So it should create the roof up at 9 feet. Now, the first thing it asks is for a boundary line, and you have a slew of options on how you can draw it. You can actually draw lines yourself, or you can pick lines or pick walls. I'm going to go ahead and I am going to draw one using pick walls, and I'll show you what ends up happening. So I'm going to go ahead and click pick walls. I'm going to select my overhang. Right now it's set to 1 feet. I'm happy with that. I'm going to select this wall. I'm going to select this wall, and I'm going to select this wall. Now, for this one, I want no overhang on it. So I'm going to go ahead and select pick lines for this one and select that line. I'm going to go ahead and do the modified tool, and I am going to fill it or trim to edge all of these. And if you look at some of the handouts for the Mallory, what we have is a gable end condition here, and we have a gable end condition up against the second floor right in here. We do want to keep our pitch here, and we want to keep our pitch here. If you look at these little triangles, those are basically for your slope and your pitch. So what the first thing I want to do is I want to click in here, and I can remove defined slope. I can do it up here, or I can do it over here. I'm going to remove defined slope on that one, and I'm going to remove defined slope on this one. Now for these two, on the lower levels, including the porch in the front and the lower level, it's a very low slope. I'm going to start with 4 and 12. So instead of 9 and 12, and I can change it over here in the properties, or I can change it right here. I'm going to go ahead and switch to 4 and 12. And I'm going to switch here to 4 and 12. And let's see what we get. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And now I'm going to go to 3D and see what type of roof I got. Now I'm going to go to the back view in here so you can see what ended up happening here. This is my front wall for that lower roof. Because I picked walls here on both sides, the bearing point of the roof is right at the 9 feet, which is what was listed there, and it matches the top of the wall. Now, structurally and in construction, you wouldn't do that anyways because it creates too much of a pressure point on that wood right at that point. But you notice that the roof continues down beyond that point. If I was to go back to level 1, or I go to ceiling plans to look up at my roof, one of the things that I found out by mistake said, if I want to edit this roof for whatever reason, something's happened with the overhang condition. So with that roof highlighted, I'm going to go to edit roof. And let's see what happens if I pull this wall back like this. And I'm just doing that so we can see what happens. I'm going to do that. And let's see if anything happens in that 3D. All right, you notice what ended up happening. This is now dropped way below. Okay, that was creating all sorts of headaches. So the simple solution I came up with was to avoid doing checking walls in most conditions if I knew that I was going to potentially edit it. And in this case, on the second floor, we're going to do that. On this one, we're not going to do that. So I'm going to undo, and get back to where we were initially like this. Now, even if I selected the walls, I would have to modify this roof. And what I'm going to do is I would go to wireframe so I can see the thickness of my wall right here. Okay, that's the wall below it. And we can't have this bearing condition right in here. We would probably have to bring this down. And since it's a wood to wood connection there, because we'd have a double top wood plate, these are frame exterior walls, I probably need 2 to 3 inches of bearing. If it was a masonry wall or a concrete wall, we would need a different number. And those are usually regulated by standards and codes. So in this case, what I could do is I could go to annotate. Let's get out of 3D. Hold on a second. I could go to architecture in this, and I could just draw a model line. It's not letting me for whatever reason. Let's highlight the roof, and I can begin to lower the roof down so that we get a bearing in here, and we would do what's called a bird's mouth cut at this point. So that would occur on both instances in here. But let's go ahead, and I'm going to delete this roof, and we're going to do it the way that we end up wanting to do it on that. Okay, there's level 1. This was the ceiling level 1. Let's go to here. Now, if you notice, most of you have your properties on one side and also the project browser on one side. I find that I have to scroll way too much up and down, so I put them on opposite sides. To me, it works better that way because I've got a longer computer in that direction. Whatever monitor you have, you can do it whichever way you want at that point. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and go to architecture again, roof. I'm going to do roof by footprint. I do not want to create it at the lowest level. I'm going to keep it there. 9 feet is fine for now. I'm going to do boundary line. And this is a simple rectangle right in here. So I could do rectangle in here, but the first, you notice I've got an overhang in there. The minute that I pick any one of these, it now becomes an offset. Okay. You can even do that. There's an offset. So I'm going to do a 1 foot offset. And I could draw a rectangle that's going to go the inside point in here, and it's already got the overhang set up. Now, as I mentioned before, I do not want an overhang here, so I'm going to go ahead and pull this one up to that point right there. And I'm going to get rid of the defined slope here and get rid of the defined slope. Whoops. Get rid of the defined slope here. Adjust this one to a 4 and 12. And adjust this one to a 4 and 12. And let's see what we get. Okay. So now I could go to a series of different views if I wanted to. I could even go to, let's say, the north elevation. And what do you think happened in here? I probably did not finish the defined slope on one of them, correct? So I'm going to go back to edit the footprint. This kicks me back in here. And there we go. There was my mistake. That should have finished up. And I'm going to redo it. And now go back to my north elevation. And that's kind of what I want. Now, here's the big difference. When you picked a line, right, rather than a wall, notice that this outside point of your offset is the one that's set at 9 feet. Now, since we have to lower them anyways, we can just lower it right in here, and I can lower it down if I want to. Okay, but what I would do in that case, I would definitely go to wireframe so that I can visually start moving it up. Now, by the way, you can use your arrow keys to move it up. And if you want to specifically draw it. I can draw a line right from the midpoint. Let's move this up a little bit more. But I could draw a detail line, which is a temporary line just for this view from this midpoint to there. And I could then move my roof, that intersection point, that one, and it's right in the middle of the wall. And I've got that same condition in here. Now let's look at it in 3D. And let's see what that looks like. I'm going to take it out of wireframe back to hidden line. And now if you look at what my roof looks like, that's exactly what I wanted. The only problem I have is that my walls, I'm not going to worry about the interior walls. My exterior walls, I want them to extend up to the roof. So I'm going to highlight the walls, and I can do this in multiples. I hold the control key. I could even do it to this wall if I wanted to. Now this one's going to be a little unique because it extends through, but let's go ahead and do it at this point right in here. Okay, so I've got all those walls connected, and I'm going to attach top base. And then it's asking me down at the bottom, select the roof, floor, ceilings, topsoil, or parallel walls that you want to send to. Well, I want to send it to there. And then what it does, it closes that off. And at least for this design, this is how I want it done. Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and do the porch roof along the front also. Now, the height of the porch roof is going to be determined by a couple of things. We're going to go ahead and do it at 9 feet to match the other one and then lower it accordingly based on this 8-inch column. We're going to go to the center of the 8-inch column. But it's also going to be determined if we want it the same slope as in the back, which I did at 4 and 12. We just have to make sure that the depth of the porch, when that roof begins to rise from front towards the building, that the top of that roof does not interfere with the windows on the second floor. So let's go ahead and go to architecture. I'm going to go ahead and go to roofs again, roof by footprint. Would you like to move it to second level? No. I'm going to leave this at 9 feet right now. And this time I am going to go and leave the overhang at 1. I'm going to use line work this time. And hopefully, wait 1 second. Let's try that again. Bounding line. Let's change this to 1 foot. And I can draw here, here. These two I'm going to have to adjust, which is a simple adjust, and then go to here. I'm going to go ahead and move this one to the wall and move this one to the outside of this wall. Now, these on the ends, you usually don't have an overhang there either. So I'm going to go ahead and pull those in right to this edge and pull this edge. And that might be a design preference one way or the other. All right, so I'm pretty well set in here. Now what I have to do is to adjust where I want gable ends and what my pitch is going to be. The 2 places I want gable ends are going to be here and down here. And I want to remove defined slope from both of those. Now in this one, I want to keep the slope, but I want it to be at 4 and 12. So I'm going to adjust it here. And I'm going to adjust this one down here or up here to also 4 and 12. And I think we should be pretty well set. I actually want to remove defined slope back here and back here because I don't want that going up in any direction. So I'm going to remove those 2. And now the only place it should be sloping up is from this edge and this edge. So it's going to be sloping up here and sloping up here. Now, if you remember, I made the porch, unlike what the reference material says, I made it the same depth on left and right. And the reason I did that is because I want the hip set right here to hit on the corner of the second floor. So let's go ahead and click. Let's go to 3D. and see what we've got. Now, as you can see, the columns are sticking up a little bit. That's okay. We'll make that adjustment later on, especially when we put the beams. And then we can take a look at that. And that seems to look pretty good. We'll do all the adjustments of where that roof is going to go later on. All right, now let's go ahead and let's go to level 2. And we're going to do level 2 as 2 separate roofs and join them. We're going to use the same procedure that we just used on the first one, but we're going to introduce a join command. Okay, so I'm going to go to architecture, roof by footprint, boundary line. This time I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to go with a rectangle with an offset of 1 foot. And I'm going to start down here and go to somewhere back here. Now, the second floor roof, based on the material, is a very steep roof. I'm going to go ahead and go with maybe a 10 and 12, a 12 and 12, or an 11 and 12. So let's go ahead and change our slopes. I could have done this all in one shot. I am going to highlight all of them and change that to 11 and 12. Let's see if that's stuck. That looks good. That looks good. That looks good. Okay. Now, this edge and this edge are gable end edges. So I need to remove the defined slope from each of those. And I'm going to go ahead and keep this one here. That's my first roof. So if we look at it in 3D, it's going to pop up from that edge. So I'm going to go ahead and finish it up. And notice it's now on level 2. And I'm going to leave it where it is right now. It's at a nice clean number, right at 9 feet, which is the height of the wall. And we are going to lower it together later on with the second roof that we're going to do. Now, I'm not going to go ahead and extend the walls yet until I finish the second roof that we're going to join. I'm going to go back to level 2. And I'm going to go to architecture, roof by footprint. And if I wanted to do this looking up, I can go to ceiling plan. Let's get that out of the way first. Level 2 ceiling plan. We should be able to see it. Let's go ahead and go to level 1. Level 2. And maybe we want an underlay. Let's say a level 2 underlay, looking up. And the other thing we want to make sure is that the visibility graphics, we should be able to see the roof here, but it looks like it's going to be too high up. Make sure also all your visibility graphics are on. Let's just go with that. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and start the roof in here. One place that you will definitely be able to see it is on 3D. So if you go to the top view in 3D, you'll be able to find it right in there. I'm going to go ahead and switch to wireframe in there and begin to draw my roof here. Roof by footprint. I want to create it on level 2. Yes. Okay, my base offset's at 9, and I'm going to draw another rectangle with my offset at 1 foot. Go to my rectangle, and I'm going to draw it short of this other roof. Now that may or may not matter, but I'm going to keep it slightly separated from that one. Now, in this case, the gable end has been reversed. The gable end is on the back and is on this edge while the slope goes up in this direction. So I want to take this one and this one, and I want to remove the defined slope. And I want to make sure that this one and this one match the desired slope of 11. So let's check it. That's 11. That's 11. And it's at 9 feet. Plumb cut on all of this. And let's see what we got. All right, so let's take a look at what we have so far with our roofs. I'm going to go ahead and go to hidden line. And one of the reasons I did this, by the way, why I extended this roof so far over to the left, was because I want the ridge of this roof to be higher than the ridge of this one. So if I was to draw a temporary line all the way from here across, if let's say I went to my east elevation and I drew a detail line from here across, notice how this roof is below that one. And that's what I want. All right, let's go back to 3D. Now what we're going to do is join those two roofs. So if you go to modify, there's a command right here under geometry, the geometry panel, right here that it says join unjoined roofs. So I'm going to click on that. And if you look on the bottom left, it says select an edge at the end of the roof that you wish to join or unjoin. So I'm going to select this edge right here. Then that changes and says select the face on another roof or wall, etc. I'm going to go ahead and select this face and both roofs join. Now, the one thing that you do want to notice is that even though it's one roof, you still got this overhang happening over in here. And what we really want to do is we want to be able to cut that out. So if we go to the top, for this house, it's really not necessary, but let's go ahead and let's do it on this one anyway. So if you go to wireframe, what we want to be able to do is remove this triangle portion from this one. So what we're going to do is we're going to highlight that roof. We're going to edit footprint. That's not exactly what I wanted to do. Let's close that out. Might be under architecture. All right, so what we want to do is to create a vertical cut, a vertical opening through a roof or floor. So I'm going to click that. Whoops. Vertical. And what it's asking me, select the floor, roof. I'm going to select that roof. And I'm going to start drawing a line from here to here to here to here. And let's see if that worked. Let's go back to 3D this way. Let's go back to our hidden line. And it looks like we can now, if we wanted to do nice cathedral ceilings inside, we can do our cathedral ceilings inside. The only problem I have right now is that the height of the roof is not in its right location. So here's level 2. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a temporary wall section across and be able to take a look at the roof in this direction. Actually, we may want to look at it a little bit differently because we're not getting our structure view in there. Let me go ahead and go to wireframe. And there's our structure for the roof. I want to lower this guy all the way down. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and draw that line like I draw it before, right in the center of the wall. I'm going to take that roof and I'm going to lower it. And now in this case, I may have to do it. Actually, that's the roof cut opening. Let me see if I can lower that roof down to there. Okay. Let's see what ended up happening. It looks like I copied the roof over. Let's look at it in 3D. See what happens when we lower it. Change it from 9 feet. Let's highlight both of them together. I think that's what ended up happening. Okay. So we want to be able to lower this, both of them. And both roofs look like they may have been lowered, maybe not. Okay. It looks like we're pretty good there. Any questions on that? Okay. At this point, I could extend the walls, which is what I'm going to do. I'm going to highlight this wall just to show you one at a time. Attach top base to that one. Let's do this one. Attach top base. Go to this. Attach top base. Go to that. I'm not sure whether we can select multiple roofs for the attached top base. Let's see if we can. Attach top base. No, it only likes one roof at a time. Okay. Okay, that all looks pretty good so far. There may be some roofs that you just got to double check these conditions here when you were attaching it to the upper roof. It looks like we're pretty good there. All right, so everything looks clean for the roof itself, but it's a pretty basic roof. If you notice, I created a basic roof generic 6 inches. I created that from a generic 12. And to do that, the simplest way to go is to just edit type, and then you can duplicate and create it by editing, let's say as an example, duplicate, and let's say I want to create a 14 or a 7-inch, which I really don't want, but just as an example. And then I still need to come in. If you notice, the default thickness is still at 1, but it's blurred out because you got to go in here, and then you change the value right in there. I'm going to go ahead and cancel, because I really don't want to create that one. And I'm going to bring this one back to a generic 6. Most of our roof is pretty well set. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and go back to the architecture tab, but this time under the roof, we're going to do roof fascia. And the default fascia that we have right here is a flat 1x12. Once again, I'm going to edit that type. I'm going to duplicate it and change that to a 1x10. We're going to do a 1x10 fascia on that, which is really 9¼ inches anyways. But what I need to change now is the profile from 1x12 to a 1x10. Right in there. I'm going to do OK. Now, when I create the fascia and I select it, now I have both options. I'm going to stick to the 1x10. Always make sure you click the edge, the top edge of your roof. And I like to go in a clockwise direction and stay consistent as I go. So when you click that top edge, you're going to see that a fascia was formed. Click another one. It should be a clean transition. Go back up to here. I'm going to rotate by holding the Shift key and the middle button. Click right in there. I can promise my computer did not make that noise. There. 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 And it looks like I'm complete there. Now, you can do composite fascias. You can create new profiles and use those if you want something fancy. In this case, we're going to keep it relatively simple. The only thing we have left to add on this upper roof is a gutter where we want it. Now, the water from this upper roof is going to spill down this way, and it's eventually going to go into this hip set right in here. So the gutter we're going to create is just going to be along here. You would not need a gutter up on top of that gable end. So let's go ahead and go to architecture again, roofs, roof gutter. And we're going to go ahead with the default bevel 5x5. Now, you got to be careful that you select this point right in here. If you want to lower it a little bit, you can potentially lower it a couple of inches, but I'm going to put it right on the top. I'm going to click the outside edge, and I get a gutter in there. Eventually, we can close off the ends. I need one here. I want to get at the right angle so I don't accidentally hit the inside edge. I want this one. And I've got one additional edge here. All right, so that takes care of the upper roof that we've done. Let's do the same thing on the lower roofs down here. So I'm going to go ahead, go to architecture, roofs, roof fascia. I'm going to click still on the 1x10, click, 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 and click. I've got that one pretty well done. I'm going to go back to roof, roof gutter. I need to get a better view there to be able to get that outside edge. Outside edge. And now we're going to do the same thing for our porch in the front. Go back to architecture, tab, roofs, roof fascia, save the project, click, click, click in there, go back to roof, architecture, tab, the build panel under roof, roof gutter, and I only need them in the front here. And I only need it over here. All right, so to me that looks pretty good. What I'll be doing later on the next video is probably creating the structural beams for support for the porch, which then can be translated over in here. This does need a column in the corner here. The simplest way to do that is go back to level 1, grab one of these columns, and then you can just copy it from that corner, place it up to that corner, go back to D, and that's what we've got there. Now these are pretty simple to change the levels and the base offsets, etc. So we can do that a little bit later on. And once again, what I may end up doing is adding these windows at the top to make sure that if I'm going to be editing this roof and the height of it, that I've got the clearance that I need up in here. And we can cover that pretty much on the next video.